Everybody who gets mesothelioma, most everybody, wants to know, where was I exposed to asbestos? Nobody remembers going to the grocery store and saying, I'll take a can of asbestos. And that's the bizarre thing about asbestos. At the Lanier Law Firm, we've worked hard to try and assimilate the world's leading asbestos museum, for lack of a better way of saying it, a collection of products that have asbestos in them. We have over 800 such products. It's amazing to see the asbestos that was put in blow dryers for hair, asbestos that was put in toasters, asbestos that was put in so many ordinary products. For a while, Play-Doh had asbestos in it. Now that's a whole set of products that we're able to try and look at and examine to see whether or not those products might be a place where you were exposed or your loved ones. But beyond that, a lot of people are exposed in the workplace. There have been a lot of pipes made, cement pipes, that actually had a large percentage of asbestos in them. There have been people who worked with cutting wheels that had asbestos in it. People who worked with insulation with asbestos, drywall, joint compounds, even paint had asbestos in it. Ceiling tiles, roofing tiles, floor tiles, shingles to go on the side of a house, asbestos. Clothing, asbestos. It's amazing the different trades and the different jobs that have brought people into contact with asbestos. A lot of people in the automotive industry have been in contact with asbestos. It was put under the hoods of cars. It was put in brake linings. It was put in a number of different gaskets. People who work in heavy industry have worked around asbestos. It's been interesting in our experience. We've been able to find people who have exposure to asbestos even though they didn't specifically work with it themselves. That's a matter called secondary exposure. Let's just take a step back and look, for example, at a shipyard. A lot of people who worked in the Navy had exposure to asbestos because asbestos was used to insulate pipes within ships. It had usages beyond that. It was used in power plants. It was used in a number of the gaskets. It was used in linings, used in a number of different places. But we will just focus for a moment on insulation. You did not have to be an insulation worker on a ship to have exposure to the asbestos in the insulation. The EPA did a study one time where an asbestos fiber, and please understand these fibers are microscopically small, and in some ways they're lighter than air. An asbestos fiber was dropped at a height of 6 feet, and it traveled over a football field before it hit the ground. So a lot of people get exposure to asbestos, not simply because they're working with it themselves, but they might have been on a Navy ship where others were working with it. What's more, the literature shows over and over again, and scientists have known for decades, that asbestos that you might be exposed to can land on your clothes. And there are countless cases, truly countless cases, of people who have exposure to asbestos because it was brought home by a loved one. So let's say that the man is working in the Navy and he gets it exposed and it gets on his clothing, and he comes home and his child comes up and runs and jumps in his arms and buries their head here and says, "Daddy, you're home." That child will be inhaling the asbestos fibers. If someone is washing clothes and the clothes have asbestos on them and they shake the dust off the clothes before they wash, that person's getting exposed to asbestos. There's this whole world of what the literature calls secondary exposure, where you're not exposed because you're working with it directly. You're exposed because someone else was exposed. What we've got to do as lawyers is we've got to have people who are really, really good at the detective work of trying to ferret out through your history where 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago you had this exposure to asbestos, either directly or indirectly. And that's what our people are trained to do to the very best of anyone's ability.